making a product pitch, the first thing that in making a product pitch, the first thing that you'll have to do is to do your research about your buyer. What volume do they move? The logistics, do they do their own farm pickups? Do they have their own freight? Do they have their do they need certifications like GAP or even New York Grown and Certified or any other type of certifications they need? And after you have made your research about who the buyer is, you have to establish your value propositions. What will be your selling point? Will it be local? Do they care about local? Will it be product quality and quantity? Will it be on logistics? Will it be price? Find out what their needs are and be prepared to discuss how you can help them meet their needs. We should recall that in most cases, the need is usually price and logistics. So be able to address those two needs. And then after you have made your value proposition, this is before approaching them, you should now establish a relationship with the buyer. Approach the appropriate manager. If it's a local store, are you going, you could walk in and find out if you could speak to someone there, but be cognizant of the fact that in some cases, some stores, they have a corporate sales manager who handles their sales. You could also make cold calls or cold emails. And if you're not sure who the food purchaser is, ask whoever answers the phone or email and make note of the correct person's name and direct contact info. Now, when you're making your email pitch, back up your claim. As I mentioned in an earlier slide, that you should have a value proposition. If your value proposition is your logistics, that you're able to move your own product, or that your price is low enough for them, make sure that you are able to prove how good your offer is. Keep your email short and sweet. And when you're sending your email, make sure that you keep them as curious as possible in your headline so that your email is not lost in their inbox. So some tips that you can have that you could use for a successful email pitch: you could start with the problem. Don't start with the solution. Begin with what the problem is. They may or may not be aware of the problem. So you should outline the problem first to create interest. And then the second step would be to tailor the start of the pitch to their vertical. A generic pitch is usually pointless. So make sure that your pitch is targeted towards the business that you're conducting. You'll need to do some research to unlock this information. And then the third important step would be, what happens if they don't solve the problem? What's at stake? What are the benefits of buying your product and or service in this instance? And then for the tip for a phone call pitch would be, you should make sure that you choose the right time for making a call. You cannot be making calls like at 3 a.m. or any other time that may be outside of working hours. Be transparent in your conversation, what you want, what you're offering, and what you're looking for. Be human and remember that you're dealing with people here. And I will let Matt share some experiences.
Hello, everybody. So I'm just going to start with a very quick Bio of myself. Born and raised here in Western New York, in Batavia, which is near, halfway between Buffalo and Rochester. I got a degree in 1995 in natural resources, which is essentially environmental science, conservation biology kind of thing. And then went out and started working on my father's farm. And then my brother and I ended up taking over that farm in Elba, New York. So I was the third generation and did that for 27 years and sold it in 2022. And then shortly thereafter, after taking a little time off, went to work for Headwater. And actually, Headwater was one of my customers when I had the farm. And one of the first things I wanted to do was kind of tell you what a food hub is. I guess I'm going to say specifically what Headwater Food Hub is because I've never worked with really or dealt with other food hubs, but I'm assuming we all kind of operate on some of the same principles. What we're trying to do at Headwater is create, a agricultural product supply chain that exists almost exclusively within New York State. So I would not say that we never purchase any products that were not grown in New York State. However, I've been there for a little more than 6 months, and I've never purchased anything that wasn't grown in New York State. So that's an overwhelming emphasis on the business model is to try to source all of our products, if we can, from New York State producers. And that includes produce, it includes dairy and protein items, beef, pork, chicken, pretty much the whole gamut. Some of it is, value added stuff like cheese and butter and yogurt, things like that, sausages. So we cover pretty much all, areas of agricultural production in New York State. And then we're also trying, and again, not exclusively, but we're trying to, sell most of these products to New York State customers as well. And I'll give you a little bit of background, because our business model has changed over the years. A big part of, the beginnings of Headwater was kind of based on like the CSA model that a lot of small farms use, consumer supported agriculture. So we were buying produce from lots of local and regional growers and curating those into boxes every week to distribute at various locations in our area. I think at one point in time, we may have had as many as 2,500, boxes per week going out to customers. And that kind of got all upended during COVID, and there's been a kind of a rapid evolution with some growing pains here and there since then. Right now, what a majority of our business model looks like is that we're sourcing from our local suppliers and regional suppliers, and most of the product, not all, but most is going to what I would call institutional customers in New York State. So we do a lot of K through 12 programs all over New York State, supplying them with certain produce and value add items. We also do a lot of food bank business. So we are curating boxes with produce items and dairy items, every week with some partners we work with down in the Finger Lakes. I think, I would say on average this time of year, we're doing about 3,000 boxes a week for various food bank organizations. And then we also do a little bit of business with some university customers. And then there is also, some just private, wholesaler, retailer kind of business that we're doing. We, we try to source. So another part of the business model is and this can be kind of a challenging thing, is we very much are trying to support small local farming communities. That's not to say, again, that we exclusively buy from small little farms, but in part of that is the economics involved in it, right? Because small farms obviously can't possibly produce, agricultural products at the same efficiency and cost as huge, farms that farm thousands of acres. So what we kind of do, especially when it comes to something like curating boxes for food bank programs, is we'll source a few items from some of the larger, farms, and then we'll source some of the items from the small local growers that we can. And that way we're able to keep the overall cost of the box reasonable for the food banks and but still be supporting the small local farmers. And I will also say, to their credit, while the main mission of most of these food banks is to feed people, obviously, they also are conscientiously trying to support rural communities and small scale growers. So they are, willing to pay a little bit more per box so that we can afford to source some of these items from small scale farms. Um, let's see. We don't at this point in time deal with direct to consumer model at all. We've the original model that I was telling you that was based on kind of a CSA model was called the Good Food Collective. And I think that, I think all of our feelings are that this is suspended for now. I don't know if it will come back or not. Most of the people that are involved in Headwater have very good feelings about that program and would like to see it come back. But at this point in time, it's not part of the business model. There are certain things I think that really separate a food hub and definitely Headwater Food Hub from traditional broker services. So, when I was a farmer, we always viewed brokers with a little bit of skepticism because kind of one of the I guess ways they operated was they weren't going to really try and beat up the big wholesaler or retailer to get more money out of them. They were going to try and beat up the grower and get the price as low as possible so that they could be making money as the middleman. Headwater is, and I believe most food hubs operate on this model. We have a lot of transparency on both ends, and we are not trying to, find the cheapest, box of broccoli crowns or bunch of kale that we can out there. We recognize that's only going to kind of contribute to the loss of small farms and consolidation, and that's not something that we think is a good for all of us. So there's a lot of transparency. We're very honest with all of our growers, and that means sometimes we just can't afford it any given week. And it can be frustrating because whenever I have a small scale farmer call me and they have a surplus of items, I want to be able to help them move it, and that's not always possible. But at the very least, I'm going to be always totally open and honest with them, about the particular situation that we're talking about. So we have, I was thinking just a little bit about the logistics situation that she was talking about as well. Some of we do have our own logistics team, and we try as much as possible to work with, farmers so that we can alleviate some of the logistics headaches. And that can be a challenge for us as well, because if we're only buying a few items here and there, it's hard to justify driving a truck and spending money on the driver all the way 50 miles out of the way to get something. But we do have enough of a network of growers that we're usually able to kind of pick up some efficiency in those routes and be able to service lots of small growers in a single run and kind of spread those logistics costs out quite a bit. We also, we do have growers from time to time who come up with their own, consumer products, and they don't have a good way of trying to bring that to market. And so, while we don't, we can't guarantee anything, we can serve as kind of a middle ground to get products in the hands of people so that they can try it out. Particularly the K through 12 schools is one of the things I'm thinking of right now. We have a little farm who wanted to develop some of their own line of soups. So, they ran a test batch, they sent some to us, and we distributed it to the, various K through 12 school districts that we're dealing with to see if it's something they might want to be able to include in their, meal plans. So that, again, that's not something that we are really in the business of, marketing products specifically, but we're certainly happy to facilitate that kind of distribution so that we can help, people who are developing new products to get them out there and have people actually see them and try them. So, let's see. Oh, and another nice aspect, I guess, of the way we're operating our business is that we have small growers who want to get involved in different products they haven't grown before. And, there's generally speaking a pretty decent amount of cooperation, not only, transparency and cooperation between us and the farmers, but also amongst the various small scale operators and growers. So there's often a grower who will want to, start producing a certain vegetable or fruit item, but they don't really know how to get involved. And we can also facilitate conversations amongst growers to help them share information. Obviously there's always a little bit of a, are they my competition? And do I want to be helping my competition? But, we've generally found that, the rising tide, raises all ships. So most of the growers involved are usually pretty happy to share, insights and tricks and techniques they have for producing various things. Um, so another thing that I think makes Headwater a good facilitator is that not all growers are obviously producing the same quantities and scale of things, and we're very flexible, and especially this is facilitated by the food bank program on how we're going to receive your product. Are we going to receive it in bushel boxes, in large bin volumes? Certain growers want to do 12 bunches of kale to a box, some 24. We buy things in, big cardboard watermelon bins, because in a lot of these cases, we're just going to be taking the items out of whatever we receive them in anyway and putting them in food boxes. So that also offers a considerable amount of flexibility for the grower, and not having to stock, thousands of dollars worth of certain size cartons and cases and packaging things in a certain specific way. Um, as far as the size of the producers we're dealing with, so as I said earlier, we have some what I would consider pretty large conventional growers that we deal with, and lots of little growers. The largest growers we deal with are growing crops on thousands of acres, and the smallest is as few as 5 acres. I think there's might be one little grower that only has 2 acres worth of vegetables. So we really are able to source products from a really wide range. I would say that there's no size too large or too small that we can't in some way facilitate moving products to market. And then one of the other things that I feel is a very important part of our business is trying to support women and minority owned farms and socially disadvantaged farms. And one of the things that we kind of bring to the table is we have a team of people who are out there looking for customers that have access to funding streams that are specifically requiring them or requesting that they purchase product from minority and women-owned businesses and socially disadvantaged farms. So, if you're a small-scale grower, you probably can't, you don't have the resources or knowledge to go out there and track down organizations that have funding streams that will, kind of be tailored to your operation. But we can aggregate all of the availability from all of our women and minority owned farms so that there's a large enough offering that then we can go out and find large institutional customers who have access to these funding streams. And it can be, kind of confusing and tricky because there are, there are many programs at the state and I think to a little bit of a lesser degree federal that, require very specifically where they're going to be sourced from. So, we have a pretty broad enough now base of customers that we've got all the bases covered. And, it allows, and it's not that a woman or minority owned business or farm can't grow things as cheaply. The problem is most of the women and minority owned farms that we're dealing with are also very small scale farms. And so for that reason, they're never going to be able to grow, an onion or a potato or a head of cabbage as cheaply as farms that are farming thousands of acres. So we offer that kind of outlet where they might be able to get enough money for that product so that they can not only survive, but actually thrive and, build enough equity to try and grow their farms, over time. So that's that's one of the, I think, best aspects of working with a food hub is if you are in a special situation, you're dealing with people who have the resources to try to hook you up with the right outlet for your product. We have so at Headwater we have I'm part of the supply team. There's a logistics team, a programs team, which is essentially sales and ops. We all work together, as much as possible to facilitate, the special, unique requirements of small scale farms. And I think we do it, pretty efficiently and pretty well. And one of the other things that I feel like is a real value that Headwater in particular, and I'm guessing other food hubs as well, can give to a grower is that a lot of the small scale farms that are scattered throughout the Finger Lakes in Western New York and the rest of the state, have a business model that to a certain degree is going to be direct to consumer based. But, you know, they never know, and none of us ever know what the season is going to bring and what crops are going to, you know, yield in surplus and what there's going to be shortages of. So for a lot of growers, we also serve as the place where they can go with their surpluses in excess of what they already have, you know, committed to either retail, you know, outlets or CSA customers. So a lot of the growers, especially down in the Finger Lakes, every week I'll send them out an email and I'll say, hey, just let me know if you have anything that you're having trouble moving this week. If we can fit it into a program somewhere, we'll be happy to. And, you know, they really appreciate not having to let any of that product go to waste. And not only that, but actually getting the price for it that they're, you know, accustomed to and really need to be getting for it. So that's kind of, I would say, you know, how our operation is running. And like I said, I'm not, you know, I'm not really familiar with other food hubs, but I'm pretty sure that, you know, we're all kind of following that same basic premise of having, you know, as much transparency as possible and trying to support, you know, an all within New York State supply chain that gives support to small scale producers and kind of supports that, you know, the rural part of our state that really depends on small farms to keep going. So yeah, so that's kind of my pitch for Headwater and why I think you should be seeking out, you know, to do some business with food hubs if you have the opportunity. And I would love to answer any questions that anyone has specifically about Headwater or food hubs in general, or any aspect of agriculture that I might be able to help with.
Thank you so much, Matt. We'll unmute everyone and we have